We want to start the show by spotlighting a vendor we love, and today we want to share about Lens Pro To Go.
Lens Pro To Go is the place to go for your lens and camera rentals. Whether you're in the market for new photography gear and you want to try it out before you buy it, or you just need a lens you don't currently own for an upcoming shoot.
These guys
and gals
are awesome sauce. They are all pro shooters themselves, so they're available to answer any questions that you might have.
They ship anywhere in the U.S., and they include round-trip shipping in their prices and don't require any deposits.
Oh, did you mention that they ship in Pelican cases?
Oops, I totally forgot. Go to lensprotogo.com to get started and tell them TogTools sent you.
So enter TogTools Podcast to get 10% off. Check them out. Here's the program. Hi, and welcome to the TogTools Podcast, where we get real about the business of photography. I'm Stephen Robertson.
And I'm Jess Robertson, and today we're talking with Tiffany BENDER of MUNCHKINS Mohawks Photography, based out of Pittsburgh. I first heard about Tiffany when I found her Lightroom presets advertised in Click magazine, and I just fell in love with her work. Tiffany's obsession with photography began when her son was born, and it only grew when their second child was born. She not only wanted to capture these fleeting moments of her children, but she wanted to do so beautifully. She was just featured in Click magazine in September, where they did a feature on her editing process. And we're so excited to talk with her today and hear about how this passion for capturing her children's memories has grown into such a successful career.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here, Tiffany.
Absolutely. Thank you. Did we miss anything? Do you want to fill us in on anything that we might have missed with your bio?
I think you got it. That captures it perfectly.
Awesome.
Great. Well, take us back to the very, very, very beginning. How did you find photography? Or how did photography find you?
Yeah, I think that's more how it happened. This was not something that I set out to do. It definitely found me. It's kind of a funny story. So I had one child, and we were getting ready to have our second baby. I was put on bed rest for 91 days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, not so fun. So I'm sitting in bed 91 days, and I actually had joined a forum online for pregnant moms, okay? So I'm online talking to a lot of other moms. Well, it turns out there was a hobbyist photography board on there. It just so happens that there were a number of kind of well-known photographers that would putz around on this forum. So being in bed for 91 days, I had all kinds of time to kill. So it's something like I got bit by the photography bug. I couldn't really go out and shoot, but I started to think all these beautiful things that I had always looked at. I love fashion, I love movies, I love the arts in general. And so this was starting to really speak to me. So while on bed rest still with a $100 Canon point and shoot camera, I started flipping it into manual, and I would start reading Scott Kelby books and all how-to photography 101s, and I would start playing with okay, my cup of water, if I use this aperture or this shutter speed, it will do this. And so that's how, honestly, it first began. So before I even started shooting children, my wheels started spinning on bed rest before I had my second child.
Wow.
So once she was born, I actually had a professional photographer come out to the house. And that was my first experience with a professional child photographer. She was fabulous. I loved, being able to see those images of my family. And the next day I went out and bought a DSLR. And honestly, from that day on, I was crazy. My family did not see me. My husband, I always used to laugh, he saw the back of my head. So he bought me a laptop. He's like, can you just at least come and sit beside me so I don't see so you're not sitting at a desk all the time. But, instead of watching TV, I would be editing or reading something, YouTubing. I mean, I really just full force, 100% was I've got to do this. I'm so passionate about it. So that's kind of where it all started.
Wow.
It must have been so frustrating, kind of confined to this bed, and yet your imagination's going wild. How did you deal with that tension? Did it piss you off?
No, it was good. It was I was like a sponge. I was taking everything in and kind of banking it for later, because I knew when I was getting off bed rest soon, as soon as the baby's born, I'm out of here, right? So I was taking all this information, and it was actually kind of a nice break from that was all I had to do. I didn't work. I wasn't really taking care of any children. So that was my whole focus. You know, my son, he would come in and sit beside me in bed, and I would try to get him in the window light. You know, my bed was right under the window, and we, you know, look at lighting with him. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was a way to kind of recenter myself and kind of just get my creative juices going. It was a good period of time, actually. Contrary to most people in bedrest.
Well, speaking of, so you kind of had this time to really think over your images and stuff, and I know that's one of the questions I have for you as far as your process. One of the first things I noticed when looking through your photography was just the amazing story that they tell. You just create, like, the way you use the setting and the lighting, and you always are creating this amazing story. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about that beforehand? Where do these come from?
Yeah, for sure. That's really something that's what my passion is. I'm not a photographer that captures, I create. You know, so people ask me, are you ever going to do weddings? No, like I can't, that's not how my brain operates. I can't go into a setting and capture something for somebody. It all happens like beforehand. I love, you know, finding out who my clients are, or, you know, with my children, knowing who they are, and really like helping bring that imagination out and that story out. I kind of live in fantasy land. I was showing you my studio beforehand. So I've got everything here, floor, ceiling, everything is white and beautiful, and it smells good, and there's lots of light. This is pretty much contrary to what my actual life is like. And most of my clients, you know, when we give them images, that's not really how their life is. But, you know, it's not, for me, it's a little bit of fantasy. Like, I really enjoy being able to get out of yourself and become who you are in your dreams, you know? So each client, I interview them. We talk about who their family is, what their style is, and then I get going. So we start, you know, and I've got a couple stylists that I work with. We really get going on like, okay, here's the things that they're giving us. And so we kind of try to piece together with the colors that they like and what their personalities are. We come up with a concept. I really can't do a shoot without having a storyline. For me, when I operate, like when I do a shoot, even if it's a small, you know, I don't do mini sessions because I can't, because I have to have that story. So even if it's not necessarily a styled shoot, the colors or the mood, all of it has a common thread that I'm able, because when I'm shooting, I'm thinking these things and I'm interacting with my client like that. So we're, you know, sometimes we go looking for fairies, you know, so we're out in like a beautiful field with lots of flowers, and there's a fairy over there. And that really helps me engage my client. And that's how I get those stories, because we really work on it. Like I've got a bank of ideas, and a lot of times I don't get to use those ideas for years because that right client hasn't come. Or sometimes I've got the clients that help, you know, their personalities and their style sparks an idea. So it's a lot of, brainstorming going on before a shoot.
I love that. That's awesome. What a cool process. And so different, I feel like, from a majority of, you know, the photographers who approach doing shoots. So I love that different.
How did you come to this methodology, this way of working? I mean, was it always just something that was kind of organic, that kind of grew?
It really was. You know, my first client, so I live in like a neighborhood with lots of young families. So I was really fortunate when I was first starting out that I had all these families at my disposal. But even then, I was doing that. Like, I don't think it was something that I deliberately set out to do. I think it's kind of how my brain operates. But, and so not only would I come up with a storyline for their shoot, even in portfolio building, I would also go and do in-person ordering at their house afterwards. And I really didn't even have a business yet, but I wanted to be able to go from start to finish and give them the whole deal. So after we, you know, did the session, I showed them their images. I want them to be able to see how I am viewing their images, like how I want them to see the art displayed. So even like 6 months in, I'm doing like in-person ordering. I really have no idea what I'm doing, but I knew that I wanted my vision to be concrete in a certain way. So that the whole process was totally organic. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to set out and I'm going to do, I think this is going to make me the most money, or this is going to be a good business model. That's just how my brain operated. So it's working.
That's really cool that you owned that too, that you said like, this is who I am, and you didn't try to fight that to fit some mold of what other people were doing. I love that you just stayed true to yourself, and That's wonderful. So, I want to ask, like, when you decided that this was what you wanted to do for a business, you mentioned portfolio building and stuff like that at the beginning. How did you go about going from this is something I'm passionate about and I'm capturing my children to going about and starting a business? Did you write a business plan? Did you just kind of start taking pictures of those families like you were talking about? How did it grow?
Well, I didn't officially do a business plan, but I do have a background in business. So I had owned some businesses prior to this. My parents both were entrepreneurs, and I actually majored in entrepreneurial studies in school. So I have, in addition to the photography side, I've got this little, I've got equal passion for business. I love it. I love figuring out how people work and how to make a thriving business. So I think those two things together were kind of working separately, and they just meshed when I decided to move forward. But as far as the pricing and business plan, I thought long and hard about it. So, and I wish I would have saved it, but there was on some photography forum, somebody had a spreadsheet. It was how to back into your pricing. It was a great formula, and I wished I would have kept it because it was invaluable for when I first started my pricing. So that's how I kind of came up with it first, was to do this set formula that somebody else told me. It was awesome. But as my business grew, I had a really smart photographer friend say to me, when you're too busy, you need to raise your prices. So every time I felt like I was drowning, my prices went up. And people stopped calling me. They weren't quite, because you're only one person and you only have so much time to spread. So every time I would feel like I was getting so busy or booked months out, I would raise my prices. And so that's kind of how my business model has grown. And now I haven't really raised my prices in the last year or so because I'm at a happy place and I feel like I've got a good product and at a good price point. But that's kind of how it grew up. But the business plan I wanted to talk about, for me, it wasn't necessarily a formal business plan, but I said to myself, where do I see my business? What are the goals for my business and for my own person? So my personal goals, my business goals, and often I would refer to that when I would be making decisions about who to shoot. What jobs to commit to, is it going to help the end result? Yes, right now that sounds like it might make me some money, but is that going to help my business in the long run? So I think it's important that you have, maybe not to come up with a whole business plan. And I know a lot of photographers kind of aren't of that mindset, so it's kind of difficult for them. But I really encourage you to kind of get down your goals so that you know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you're going, it's hard to make decisions for today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we just fell in love with you all over again.
Thanks.
No, that's our whole bread and butter. We're really focusing on the business end of this whole shoot and match. So that's phenomenal. That's where you come from, and you were able to leverage your legacy with your parents. Not only that, but owning previous businesses. Knowing where you've messed up in the past and leveraging that for your current enterprise. One question I had was, photographers, we're not really entrepreneurs. We're freelancers. Mm-hmm. When we don't work, we don't make money.
Right.
And I've noticed that you have some products that are out there now. So you have crossed that line. You had a couple businesses before in the past where you were an entrepreneur, but then maybe something happened. Don't know the past there, but now you're a freelancer and you've come back into being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Talk to me about that process of knowing I need to create a preset package. I need to do this and I need to do that.
Yeah, well, so kind of to go back about my previous businesses. So I had businesses where I had employees and a lot of responsibility, and I kind of got tired of that. So I went to be a stay-at-home mom, and then I worked an office job, and I said, okay, that's who I am. So when I started my photography business, it was a little scary to rely on your art to make money. And I was fortunate that our family didn't depend on the money at the time. But once I got a place where I was getting so big, I had to take on some help and some employees. And so I knew, like you said, I'm my own entity at this point. if I don't work, I can't pay this person, and that person is dependent on me. So I had to sit back and think to myself, okay, I'm only one person. I'm doing mentoring, I'm offering workshops, I'm shooting clients. Okay, that's all I can do. There's only so many hours in the day. So I had to figure out a way that I could create some residual income so I could keep all these things going and manage it, because at this rate, I could not manage it. I was getting too big for my britches, and I needed some income to happen in the background so that I could take some time. I wouldn't have to do so many shoots, I wouldn't have to do so many shoots just in order to maintain that cash flow. So that's kind of how the presets were birthed. I had been making presets for a long time. I'm a huge believer in using Lightroom. I think it's a great time saver. It keeps your images very consistent. I think it's an amazing tool. So I've been drawn to that since the very beginning. So I was making my own presets to help with my own workflow. So I had talked to some other photographer friends and was talking to them about where they were frustrated, and it was always like, okay, I have no time to edit. My kids go to bed, and then I work from like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. because it takes me so long to edit. Yeah. So I was trying to find a way, okay, well, wait, I need to make some residual income. Hey, I'm getting a process down that I don't have to stay up anymore because I'm creating these presets that work. They work, oh my gosh. So I started to test that out on some photographer friends, and it was working on their images too, because that's the hard thing about presets, is that it's hard to get, reach the masses and make sure it works for everybody.
Right.
But so that's kind of how it was birthed, and we tested it. And every preset collection we do, we test on snapshots, amateurs, professionals, film shooters. All different people. And types of photography to make sure that it's a product that I can stand behind, because I can talk about anything that I truly believe in.
Right.
I'm not a good liar though. So if I don't believe in it, I can't talk. I can't sell it. I can't talk about it. I'm very open and honest. So I have to believe in my product. So I'm excited that I'm able to offer this to people, and the stories that I get back from other photographers about how it has changed their life. Like when I hear somebody say like, your presets have changed my life, I'm like, wow, I know they changed my life, but it's so great that actually is happening for other people.
Yeah.
So it's great personally, and spiritually it makes me filled up, and then business-wise it allows me the freedom to do things like this. I can do podcasts, I can do interviews, I can write for magazines. So I've got all these other areas that are filling me up spiritually and emotionally, all these other areas. So I'm not a slave to always having to do sessions. So,
right. That's phenomenal. Thank you. Yeah. That's a great answer.
That was amazing. And I have to say, too, I've seen so many presets over the years and so many things offered. I tend to be more drawn to the Photoshop ones, and yet they tend to be a little bit more complicated and take more time and finessing and things like that. And I love working in Lightroom. So when I saw your images, for the first time, to me, your images sold your presets. When I saw that here you are taking these images and then you had presets and then they were Lightroom, I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't even tell him. I just bought them. You don't know.
What?
I bought them. But I've been working with them on this last wedding that I shot, and they are phenomenal. I've never enjoyed Lightroom presets. I have to be honest. This is the very first time. Yeah. So you definitely did an amazing job, and it shows the time that went into it.
Thank you.
I want to take you back to the beginning kind of part of your business. You kind of mentioned, the vulnerability of making money from your art and that kind of thing. When did you kind of get out of, or did you never, I'm going to try and ask this question. Have you ever had the issue of shooting people who weren't your clients? And how did you deal with that and move away from people who weren't your clients into finding people who are your clients?
Okay, well, it wasn't a quick progression. There was something that I kind of did pretty early on, was to set a minimum purchase commitment. And that would kind of get people that weren't really serious about investing time and money into the session, that would cut them out.
What does that look like? I'm sorry. What does a minimum purchase commitment look like? Take me through that process.
Well, so when they inquire about having a Munchkins and Mohawks session, there is a minimum that they're required to spend above and beyond the creative fee. So
Prints,
if they can't
canvas.
put that in, so it could be anything. I'm not very detailed. As long as they spend X amount of dollars, that's fine. So that would say, okay, that they're committed to spend X amount of dollars with us, and it's a pretty decent number. So that meant that they were serious and they were willing to put the time in. So I style all my shoots like I had told you, and that means them purchasing clothes. It's a rarity that we dig from their closet, and it's almost always a new clothes, working with stylists. So there's a lot of time commitment, money commitment from them, so that I know that they're vested. So when we go to do the shoot, everybody's excited. This is not something like, it's a lot of conversations, I think, is how we get to that part. So when I'm talking to clients on the phone, when it's our first contact, I tell them what to expect. So we're going to shoot for 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 5. You can expect us to, completely style 2 different sets. And so, like, if I'm telling them all these things and this is scaring them, then I know they're not my clientele. And I will say that to them. If this sounds like it's a good fit for you, then I'm going to send you over our client guide, which is a little, it's like a 10-page magazine. And it gives them what to expect. So a month before the shoot, 2 weeks before the shoot, the day of the shoot, 2 weeks after the shoot, they know exactly what's going to be expected of Munchkins and Mohawks. So they know if this is the right fit for them. And at this point, we only shoot once a week, sometimes every other week. Because we spend 40 hours or so with each client. So it's a big commitment. But in the beginning, even I was styling clients, even when they didn't want to be styled. I was like, this is what you should wear. and you know what? I think somebody told me one time, you're responsible for every element in your image. So I remember doing a shoot and the parents showing up in outfits that I wouldn't have worn to go grocery shopping in. Being honest, and editing those pictures was so painful. And after that, I said to myself, listen, I'm responsible for how those pictures turn out. So I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. They are hiring me as a professional, as an artist, and it's my responsibility to help them. Maybe they don't know. Okay, maybe their style is this. Well, I can help them find something in their style, but that is more pleasing to the eye, So from the very beginning, we were doing that.
That's great. That is phenomenal. I want to commend you for that.
I just love all your processes and stuff. It's amazing.
It's like I think that we talk to a lot of photographers who kind of miss that whole perspective, and you really do, from what it sounds like, an amazing job managing expectation.
Yeah,
and
I think that's key. Yeah,
it really is. Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you can't manage expectation of your client or your customer, you're not really managing your brand well, and it's phenomenal. So hats off to you for that. That's amazing.
So I don't know if you mind sharing this, but if you don't, would you mind sharing kind of what your current pricing is for a session? What's that investment like for a family, and where it started? And how
that's scary sometimes. I still pinch myself, but most clients buy 2 wall galleries and a digital collection. Okay, so what that would look like, the day of their ordering session, I will go out to their home, and again, we will have talked about this when I first contact them. What are you hoping to get from the session? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you hiring me? What are we going to do with these pictures? Because I'm shooting for the end goal, right? Mm-hmm. So the day of the ordering session, I will come prepared with what I think they should do. Now there are the photographer's wall guides sells these awesome templates that you can actually have visuals, so you can show them this is what canvases look like on your wall, and this is what the custom frames look like, and I will show them how I shot your session. Here's how I think it should be displayed. So I'll go out to their home and I will show them that. It's 80 to 90% of the time they buy exactly what I show them. Exactly. They don't even change a picture. I mean, it's so funny because they'll go through and I'll say, okay, what are your favorites? And then we'll go back and we'll look and they'll go, oh, yeah, you have all those pictures in there. Yeah. We did that on purpose, yeah. So typically they buy, and I show them a couple wall galleries. Typically it's, we do 2 different sets of clothing or outfits. So we'll do a wall gallery for each. And then I show anywhere from 90 to 150, sometimes more images, because I shoot for wall galleries. I want them to have that variety. So then they have to buy the digitals because they can't never see these pictures again. So they want to see all their pictures. They don't, even if we're not hanging every single picture, they can't stand the thought of never being able to see that picture again. Yeah. So, and with the digital collection, I love having something tangible, because most of my clients are only going to look at them on their phones if they just get the digital files.
Right.
So I give them an image box full of 5x7s that they can have, so that every picture is printed.
Wow.
And it's great because then they can give them as gifts, or they can hang on the wall or take them to the office. But I like that they're tangible and they can be passed down too.
Very cool.
But so pricing wise, typical clients, it's anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 per session, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm really, really blessed. Yeah.
Where did you start?
I started probably where everybody else started. So I'm thinking like creative feed, 150. I think I put my pricing up there from the very beginning. It wasn't quite this high, but most of my, I use that spreadsheet for my pricing. So my pricing was kind of where I wanted it to be to make money. And what I did in the beginning was I discounted it. So here's my pricing. And then I'm having a Fresh Faces campaign, and it's 50% off right now. So guess what? I'm not a cheap photographer. I'm an expensive photographer. You're just getting a deal.
That's good, right? Though. It is. I think
I almost like inhaled tea. Yeah. Oh my God.
No, I really like that. And I think too, I don't know, I really love the idea of shooting with the end goal in mind, and being, especially with the type of work that you do, to not have that be an important part of the equation. Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to hang that stuff on your wall. How could you not?
Tiffany, what's one thing that you're doing today in your business that's maybe fresh in your mind that you weren't doing before in the beginning?
Saying no. And that has been so freeing. So I'm fortunate now. I've got a full-time assistant, and I've got a great intern who just turned into an assistant. And I think it's hard for me to say no, because I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy, and I want to help them, and I want to get them beautiful pictures. But then there's like the reality of, okay, wait, there's not enough time to do that. So actually, it's great because my assistant has to hear the wrath of what happens when I can't get everything done. So she's able to say no. So it's funny because this fall is the first fall that, it's Christmas card season, and it's really busy for most portrait photographers. This is the first time. My neighbor looked at me last night and she's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, she's like, "You're home in the evening." I know, we're like, every year we get a little bit better with our schedule and saying no and committing to the work that we have and not taking on more than we can chew. And now in the beginning, you got to be hungry. I did not sleep for the first 3 years. When I say that, I mean that. I mean like 2 hours of sleep for like 3 years straight. You got to be hungry. But like when you get to a place where you're established, I feel like your work is more valuable if you're not doing every job that comes your way. Mm-hmm. You have to be choosy. And if, I don't know that it would have been helpful in my first couple of years saying no. I think I had to kind of pay my dues and build up to this point. But for me now, saying no is really, it's freeing.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about the whole business background a little bit more, since that's what we're about, and that's what we're doing. If you had maybe a couple of tips that you could offer new photographers, very specifically business related, not related to editing or anything like that necessarily, but just who are starting out and starting a business, what might some of those tips be for them?
Well, the one thing that changed my whole mentality, transitioning in from being an artist and from just taking pictures to actually becoming a business, it was hard to say I'm worth X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. My work my pictures are worth this. It's just paper. It was hard to like say, okay, I feel like I deserve this much money. But what changed for me is when I viewed it as this is time away from my family, my kids. So anytime you're making a decision to do something, you're making a decision not to do something. Mm-hmm. So that for me was like a huge aha moment. Like, okay, if I don't think I'm worth it, I think my kids are worth it, you know? So I need to be charging appropriately. This is not, you know, I'm not doing this for free. And yes, I love it. That's a crazy, amazing bonus that I love what I do. But that doesn't mean I have to do it for free. Mm-hmm. You know, people, and that's when I was able to kind of redirect myself into like, okay, this is a business and I'm okay to charge that. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that like self-esteem issue of moving to that next level. But if it's not for me, it's for my family. So that was huge for me. Yeah. Any other business tips? Get everything in black and white. So I think the first couple years, it was like a lot of, oh, well, I thought I said that. And here we go. The expectation is, I'm like, well, you know, and so then I would always be backpedaling because I'm like, oh, well, I really meant this, but they were expecting this. So I got all of my policies out in black and white. And that's why I have this 10-page client magazine that they can see every detail that is going to happen for their shoot. So there's no surprises. And then that's less of that I have to manage like any kind of client expectations. Now, I don't ever have an unhappy client. Everybody knows what to expect. In the beginning, you know, you feel like you're doing a song and dance. I remember one Halloween, I had to like go deliver a canvas on Halloween before my kids went trick-or-treating. Why? Like, it's pictures. It's not brain surgery. Like, nobody's going to die if they don't have their pictures the next day. All right? So, but like, these are the expectations that you need to get in black and white and let your clients know up front so that you run your business, not letting your business run you.
I love that.
That is phenomenal. Well, I know there's so many more questions. We're going to have you back in the future just to work through these questions.
Continue picking your brain.
But just a couple shorties would be... Shorties? Where did that come from?
He's a child of the 70s, so...
Would be... I'm not that old. I'm a child of the 80s, not the 70s. How old do you think I am? All right. Anyway, let's gear out a little bit.
Geek out on gear.
Geek out on gear. What you start with, and what are you using now in terms of an actual body?
Okay, Nikon D300 was my first body. Rocked that in a 35 1.8, like $300 lens for like 2 years.
Nice.
And now I shoot with the D3S and a couple of D700s. Favorite lens would be the 70-200 for sure. First of all.
Yeah.
Another lens that I love, but it's kind of impractical, is the 200 2.0, which is like this big. So when I'm shooting kids, I have to like, you know, lay on the ground and balance myself. But yeah, that's my favorite.
That's great. That's great.
Very cool.
Awesome. I like that.
What, the 200?
Yeah, it's just massive. Yeah.
It's massive. Yeah.
One other question about gear lighting. What do you do? Do you shoot all natural light, or do you do any off-camera lighting?
Nope, all available light. I find with kids, they're moving so fast that it's just best to work with the light you have. A reflector though, you know, so I do use a reflector because I do a lot of backlighting, so sometimes to get that fill light in. And in Pittsburgh, it's pretty dreary as opposed to where you guys are. So it's pretty dreary here. So in the winter, it's very helpful when I'm shooting indoors to kind of reflect some light back up. And it's less editing. So
yeah,
very cool.
That's easy right away. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you would give to a new photographer?
Well, we just asked her that.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, the business questions. You're saying outside of the business stuff?
Outside of the business
Because she just gave 2 amazing tips for new photographers.
True.
Those cold meds, I tell you.
Those cold meds will do it.
Do you have anything else that you want to just leave new photographers with? Maybe outside of, it doesn't have to be something specifically business related, but just one last word of advice for new people.
Yeah, stay true to yourself. You know, don't try to be who I am, who you are, who everybody says you should be. Like, you really need to be, in order to get the business and keep a business, you need to stay true to yourself. There are enough people to go around. There's plenty of photographers. The competition is endless, but there really is no competition when you're yourself.
Yeah.
There's nobody that can replace you. So just stay true to yourself, rock out whatever you are.
Absolutely.
Just follow your passion.
Awesome. And can you tell everybody where they can find you, your website, and where they can find your presets?
Sure, yeah. MUNCHKINSandMohawks.com is our blog. You can see lots of pretty pictures there. And if you're interested in our photographer's tools, that's photographerstools.com. We've got Lightroom presets. We've got a couple of Photoshop actions on there. And we've got new stuff coming soon, too. So we've got some exciting stuff in the works. So you'll want to be sure to check that out. And our Facebook page is pretty active. So that's Munchkins Mohawks on Facebook. We're always posting sales and tips and all kinds of fun stuff. So that's a good place to hang out. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you again.
Can people find you on Twitter?
You can. I'm just pretty quiet.
Okay.
Me too.
Still haven't got. It's pretty quiet over there, Twitter.
Still haven't got into the whole Twitter thing. But thank you again so much, Tiffany. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. So we will chat with you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey there, friend. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you're able to implement some of the tips and strategies discussed in this session. If you'd like to learn more about TogTools, please visit TogTools.com.